When an individual in ancient Greece took their final breath, their journey was far from over. Like so many other ancient cultures, the Greeks did not believe that death was a simple end, a dissolving into nothingness. To them, death, much like life, was a passage. A soul detached from the body, stepping into the realm of Hades, where the physical laws of the living did not apply. Would they be judged? Would they be punished? Could they find the glory that their culture held in such high regard? Or would they fail the tests and find themselves in eternal torment? From the gates of the underworld to the whispers of forgotten myths, we unravel the fate that awaited the souls of ancient Greece. Welcome to Vortex Mythology, where we are exploring the cycle of myth and lore that lingers among shadows and whispers, drawing in those who hunger for knowledge of forgotten gods and distant echoes. The channel and the stories that unfold grow with your interaction. Please do like, subscribe, and share. This place thrives on your presence. So, with veil thinning, let us step beyond into the murky depths of death in ancient Greece. But first, you must die. The Greeks understood this truth well. Death was not an end, but a passage, and not necessarily a welcome one. Often a dreaded journey requiring payment. They buried their dead with coins, jewelry, and pottery. The jewels and trinkets were merely a way to distinguish a person's rank in life. After all, a person's class, unlike other cultures we have visited, in many ways mattered more to the gods than their actions in life. But then comes the infamous Thanatos. Whilst on first glance an ominous and even sinister-looking presence, in actual fact, he does not judge, nor does he waver. He comes only to perform his duty. It is his responsibility to separate the psyche from the flesh, severing the bond between body and soul. He moves like a shadow, unseen and indifferent, to deliver them to their next stop on the journey. You see, a soul could not possibly navigate the whole of the Greek underworld Hades alone. Made up of many layers in all, it is simply too vast and too complex. Now, as is so often the case with ancient cultures, myth, and lore, memories shift, stories morph, and meanings evolve over time. The journey we're about to take into the shadowed depths of the Greek underworld is a path we believe offers a fascinating and fluid descent, pieced together from older sources and echoes of forgotten times, rather than the polished gloss of modern interpretations. We're stepping into an ancient world, and in doing so, we ask only this. Approach mythology not with a need for rigid answers, wrong and right, black and white, but rather approach with curiosity, with wonder, with the spirit of exploration. Let questions arise. even if answers never fully land. And with that, let us begin. The first realm lies upon the banks of the River Styx, where the dead first lay eyes on Hermes. Thanatos has done his work, severing the soul from flesh, and his duty ends here. Now it is Hermes, the guide of travellers, who takes over. As is often the way in the underworld and afterlife of many cultures, this guardian does not speak, nor offer comfort. He coldly fulfills his singular task, to lead the newly departed to the judges. The soul is taken to Hades himself, ruler of this domain, the god after whom the underworld is named. On one side stands Cerberus, the monstrous three-headed hound, its hackles raised, ever at the ready to pounce on those foolish enough to try and flee their fate. There is no escape. On Hades' other side stand the judges Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, once mortal kings that were considered so fair and wise that the gods gave them this most serious task, to judge the mortals' forever fate. They decide where the soul must go, and once the decision is made, the deceased is brought to the ferryman, Charon. The coin they've brought is payment for his services, or else they cannot travel further than this point. Charon's only task is to row the judged across the entirety of the River Styx until they reach their destination. If the dead have any complaints, or wishes to plead their case one more time, it is too late. Charon is deaf and unmoving to the excuses and pleadings of doomed men. The journey has begun. Charon is about to take them to torment or paradise. Which fate has this fresh soul deserved? The River Styx coils around the underworld 7 times, an eternal, twisting path where souls drift in the grip of fate decided for them by the judges. There is no mercy here, only the cold certainty of destination. First, the soul arrives at the river Acheron, its waters thick with sorrow. Here, the dead are stripped of earthly filth and washed clean. Things from the mortal world do not belong here. The river's current leads them past the throne of Hades, where Persephone gazes on the never-ending procession of dead drifting past on their water-riding vessels. She is the underworld's unwilling queen. Her resentment for her home is tangible in the air. Persephone can only experience the vibrance and warmth of spring once a year, before she must return to this cold, unyielding prison that Hades has trapped her in. Their marriage is one of misery, but of course, misery is the foundation of this place. And so, at least their odd union is fitting. Charon pushes the boat forward, ferrying the soul into Cocytus, the river of Wailing. Here, those denied burial wander endlessly, their forms hollow and fractured. The echoes of their suffering never cease, filling the air with ghostly lamentation. Souls who did not bring coin may also be discarded here too. Charon does not give free rides, so he leaves them in a place that is so utterly depressing that the inhabitants cannot do anything other than to wail in their despair without end. Then comes Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Its waters are still, smooth, and endlessly deceptive. Here rules Hypnos, god of sleep, and brother to Thanatos. The souls destined for reincarnation drink from Lethe's surface, and with each sip, their past bleeds away. Faces, voices, joys, and agonies, all erased. They step into their new existence, unaware of the lives they have lost, oblivious to the fate they have suffered before. The boat drifts towards Phlegethon, the river of fire. Here is where the common sinners burn in the boiling waters, while centaurs patrol the banks, their bronze-tipped spears ready to thrust sinners back into the depths, should they try to crawl their way free. But Phlegethon does not claim them forever. Its purpose is punishment, not eternity. Because for the Greeks, not all sin is equal, but all sin must receive the appropriate castigation. Here, one serves their sentence before being moved on. How long that burning suffering will be is solely dependent on what the judges have decided. This is not the final hell. That is yet to come. The Styx moves ever onward, and the soul has no choice but to wait and watch as the screaming souls drift by, while Charon continues to row them across the winding, silent river. Fifth to pass are the mourning fields, a place stained with sorrow, where the air is thick with regret and mystery. The myrtle groves twist in shadow, their branches reaching like desperate hands toward the sky. Here, souls never cease their lament, reliving the agony of love turned to tragedy. Betrayed lovers, hearts broken beyond repair, doomed to weep forever in the endless fields. The Greeks understood the power of love better than most civilizations. They were aware that it had the power to start wars, to both bring the greatest joy on earth and the greatest pain in existence. Loss in love was so deeply revered for the Greeks that it deserved its own place in the afterlife. Now the ghostly passenger reaches the sixth plane, the meadows of Asphodel. The souls here were neither great nor terrible, but then again, to the gods, to dare to be mediocre was a sin deserving of its own punishment. Those who dared to be ordinary drift through the misty fields, their feet never quite touching the ground, their thoughts slipping away like grains of sand through desperate fingers. They wander until memory itself fades, their names forgotten, their pasts erased. First the faces, then the voices, then everything else, until nothing remains but shadows without identity, lost amongst the grey asphodel bloom. To live unnoticed, to die unremarkably, is to become nothing at all. Finally, Hades' domain offers a place of reward. We have reached the 7th place, Elysium. Here, the ever-gloomy skies of Hades are replaced by golden sunlight, where music hums in the air and laughter never fades. This is paradise, as it should be imagined. Lush gardens sprawl beneath eternal skies, feasts stretch endlessly, and joy is woven into the wind itself. Yet even here, favour is fickle, for the gods have a rather arbitrary concept of what deserves reward. Helen of Troy was granted eternity here for beauty alone, her soul resting on gilded laurels. Orpheus walks the meadows, his sorrow painted into legend. A reward he was granted not for virtue, but for the entertainment his tragedy provided the gods. Even paradise is not without its illusions, and the fate of those who end up here is still ultimately at the will of the gods and the hands of the so-called fair judges. But there is something deeper still, something beyond the warm glow of Elysium, past the silver-lined clouds, past every whisper of joy. And here, there is only suffering. It is a pit without end, a prison without mercy. Its gates groan beneath the weight of eternity. Its depths devour even the echoes of hope. Here lies the last destination, the place where sins are bound in stone, where the condemned never see the light again. Here lies Tartarus, and once the Styx delivers you to its jaws, you will never leave. Not merely a hell, but a workshop of torment, where the gods sculpted suffering into a fine art. This was no land of flames and mindless agony, but a prison, where punishment was tailored, refined into something personal, intimate. A nightmare crafted with intent. Here are the betrayers, the deceivers, those who dared to mock divinity itself. Souls like that of Tantalus, cursed with an unending thirst and hunger, only to be denied satiation when the water recedes before he can drink it, and the trees grow too tall every time he reaches for the fruit. Or the famous tale of Prometheus, who is damned to hang from the bluff as the eagle devours his liver, only for him to awaken whole, so that the cycle can begin again, and again, and again. Tartarus does not merely punish, it remembers. It does not merely torment, it plays with its prey, eternally toying with the damned. But then again, the gods have never been kind. To them, mankind is nothing more than insects. too insignificant to be respected, too tempting to be ignored. Playthings in flesh, beautiful enough to possess, yet foolish enough to trick, and fragile enough to break. They have reached down from their thrones for centuries, pulling mortals into their embrace, their wars, their punishments, all for their amusement. So why should Hades be any different? Sure, there's always the possibility of reaching Elysium, but let's be honest, the odds are stacked against us. Even with the purest intentions, it's the fickle will of the gods that seals our fate. A judgment as cold, final, and inescapable as death itself. And with that uplifting note, we bid you farewell on your own journey. If you enjoyed this video, well, perhaps that's not the right word. But if you've made it to the end of this particularly shadowy path, do consider subscribing and giving this video a like. And of course, feel free to share your thoughts below. Until next time, remember, even if the gods couldn't care less about you, they'll still judge you mercilessly.